What's up, Dragon Brood? So, those of you that are new to the channel may not know, but about, we'll say 6 weeks ago, we took a look at a rogue deck, and it didn't go very well. Matter of fact, I made 2 different versions during the course of the video, and none of them fared better than getting a win or 2. So, we kind of just put that on the shelf. But fans keep saying, we want a rogue deck, want a rogue deck. And one of the things I said was, hey, once we get some more rogues that are working together to do the same things, then you might be able to build a deck. Well, lo and behold, Zendikar Rising put a bunch of rogues that are trying to do the same things. So, of course, I had to come back to this and build a deck. So, here we are today. And before we take a look at it, remember to like this video to help us get in front of more people. Hit the subscribe button to help me out and let me know you appreciate all the work we're doing with these Zendikar decks. And hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I have a video up. Also, important to hit the notification bell because I'm going to be putting out multiple videos every day for Zendikar Rising decks for Standard, leading up to the release next week. So be sure you don't miss that. But for now, let's go take a look at this blue-black DIMIR rogue deck. Alright, so this deck's going to start out with some of the usual suspects, and then kind of finish somewhere slightly abnormal. I don't know, we'll see. I would expect though that anybody that puts together a deck like this would very likely be in the same space. So I imagine anybody's putting together any type of DIMIR rogue decks probably going to be within 12 cards of this list. The biggest difference really is just going to be if you choose to go more creature attacking route or if you want to play more of a flash Slitherwisp type deck. Those are kind of really where I'm seeing the changes between the various deck types. But we're going to go ahead and take a start from the top here. We are playing 4 Thieves Guild's Enforcer, and the Thieves Guild Enforcer is probably one of the quality rogues from the last couple of standards, and we're just giving it a shot. You know, why not? It's going to be able to mill every single thing with every creature in the deck, so you should be able to get to 8 cards in your opponent's yard fairly easily. And this will pick up a little bit of size and death touch, which is great. This one's a little bit unassuming. This is a 1/1 for 1. It's flying. Every time it attacks, it mills your opponent. And then, if your opponents have 8 cards or more, you can sacrifice it and draw a card. I mean, the drawing a card is actually relevant, and it's really nice. Also, being able to mill your opponent for 1. And you have other flyers that your opponents also have to tend to, so it kind of gets a little reprieve in these different game states. How good is it overall? I think that still remains to be seen, but at least I think in the first iteration we're going to give it a shot. And then here's another 1-mana creature that is more of a combat trick than anything. It reduces the power of a creature attacking you, and it is up to 1, so you can play it and not target anything necessarily, but you usually are. You give a creature -2 power, and then the creature ends up, or the creature's controller has to mill 2 cards. So it's another way to get cards milled over. Additionally, it is one of those things that, you know, if you reduce the power, maybe you can chump block with a couple of things and keep your creature alive. So it's really more of a creature kill / combat trick card more than an actual creature, but it does fit the theme and still do what we're trying to do. Now, I have a feeling this is going to, the Soaring Thought Thief, man, so many names I have to learn. But I believe this is going to end up being probably one of the better cards in the deck. It's a blue and a black, 1/3, flash, flying, and as long as the opponent has 8 or more cards in the graveyard, all your rogues have an additional +1 attack power. And when whenever one or more rogues you control attacks, you also get to mill the opponent. So it's very possible that you can end up attacking with it and a couple of creatures. Those ends up putting your opponent at 8 cards in the yard, and then now everything is a bonus attack. So it's not when you attack, it's a static ability that once your opponent has 8 cards in the yard, then all of your things have bigger power. So just something to remember whenever you're playing it. Spells, we do have some Drown in the Locks. And this is a good dual purpose card, you know, where it can be a counter or it can be a creature removal card. But the biggest thing is you're going to be able to load cards in your opponent's graveyard. And it's very likely you're going to be able to get them down probably easily to the 6 to 8 card range within a couple of turns. So this is going to turn on Drown in the Lock to be able to deal with almost any spell your opponent's going to play. in the early stages of the game. And then once you're beyond like turns 5, 6, 7, you should be able to use it against nearly everything. Lofty Denial. This is the next card that I think it's one of those things I debated. Wanted to have a spell counter in the deck of some kind in addition to the Drown of the Lock, because you don't want to rely on that, because you're going to end up needing it as a creature kill card sometimes. But Lofty Denial actually works here because we have a fair amount of flyers. I believe we have 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 flying creatures in the list. Something like that. 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Oh, actually 14, I think. But regardless, it's enough that you can very reliably hit the number of flyers that you need to make this be at max value. And keeping your opponent to where they can't sweep your board easily, maybe can't kill your best creature you have out, like that's going to be very important toward winning a few of these games. Enough that I considered finding a way to get a 4th Lofty Denial into the list. That might be the first thing I would try to do if you're going to make an adjustment. Brazen Borrower. We have all seen enough Brazen Borrower for one lifetime, but the card is still good. Like, you can't get around playing it. It has flash, it's flying, it's a rogue. Not sure why, but it is. I kind of get it. It's a rogue that sort of steals things, so that makes sense. But really, in general, it's just an all-around quality card. And when you're talking about just keeping stuff out of the way so you can keep attacking, keep milling your opponent, it's pretty good. And then this guy. So those you don't know, this is the Nighthawk, but it's a 3 mana, so 1 colorless, black, for a 1+X 3. And it's bigger for the number of different card types in your opponent's graveyard. It also has Flying, Death Touch, Lifelink, which is pretty dang good. Now, when you're milling your opponent, the different types of cards are like Artifact, Land, Creature, Instant, Sorcery, Planeswalker. So for each type that's in the graveyard, you're going to get an additional +1. Very likely, when against most decks, especially now that everybody's playing all these extra cards that are double-faced to have lands in the back, the odds of you hitting something that's a non-land is going to be pretty high, and it increases the odds that you're going to hit like a sorcery or an instant or whatever. So it's very possible this could end up being like a 4-3, 5-3 very easily, if not bigger, attacking your opponent. So this is a very serious threat and can end the game pretty quickly. The Black Bloom Rogue. We're not really excited about this card, but it is a 3 mana 2/3 with Menace, and it gets +3 power if your opponent has 8 or more cards in the yard, so that's pretty good. But it does function as lands 21 through 24 for this list, so we kind of have to give it some attention. Not a card I'm excited about, like I said, but it actually is pretty reasonable. It can be a big powered creature to block with or attack with. It has Menace, so it's hard to block. And it's actually a reasonable card in addition to being a land. So it makes the cut, but if we were to make adjustments, I could see maybe splitting these between turning them into 2 regular land and 2 some other spell. But, we got to play some games first and find out. Playing Rankle. A lot of people don't know that Rankle's a rogue. And it's good. It's another creature that flies, has haste, and multiple abilities, right? When you're trying to get your opponent to sacrifice things, or you need to draw a card, like, it's pretty overall utility. And even sacking stuff isn't a big deal, because there's going to be times you're going to have a Zulaport Duelist not doing anything anymore. Feel free to sacrifice it and your opponent loses, hopefully a creature better than your Duelist at that point. And then Hagra Mauling. We're playing 3 of this as well. And this is another one that's one of the modal double face cards, as we refer to them, where it's got a land on the backside. And it comes into play tap, which is a little bit of a downer, but at the same time, we have so many 1 mana things in this list and 2 mana things that we're not that worried about it if a land has to come into play tapped early. We're still going to be able to function with no major issues. And this lets you kill a creature, and occasionally you're going to get to cast it for 3 because the opponent doesn't have basic lands. As you've seen in a lot of our lists, we're not playing a whole lot of basics in several of these, so there's a good chance you're going to get to kill something pretty easily and cheaply. And then the big card that everybody's kind of hyped about when you're playing Rogues is Xerath, the Trickster. And here's the thing, Xerath Sand is a good card, but I think people are kind of overexcited about it because they like the idea of ninjutsu from way back in Kamigawa, and they've been waiting for more quality cards that play that way. So this doesn't really have ninjutsu as a listed ability, but it acts very much the same way. It's 3 colorless blue-black for a 4/4. When you have an unblocked rogue, you can pay 2 a black and a blue to basically swap them out with Xerath and return the other one to your hand. And when Xerath makes contact with your opponent, you get to take a permanent card from their graveyard and put it into play. And the interesting thing is, it's a permanent, not a creature, a permanent. So if, I don't know, you've milled a Great Henge, great, you now get to have a Great Henge, or whatever it is, right? That's pretty interesting. And then there's times your opponent's gonna have things that work better for you. Like maybe there's a Planeswalker you want to get. That's a thing you can do. So lots of very, very cool things you're going to be able to do with Xerath Sand, which I think that's the biggest card that people are excited about in this entire list. Now, if you want to take a look at the lands, like I was saying, some of the cards we're playing function as our later lands in the list. So we do have right now 7 non-regular lands that are some type of modal double face cards. The rest of these are actually just as they are. Now, we did get a benefit of having a pathway that has black on one side, blue on the other side. That's going to solve a lot of problems for us early. We are playing more basics than we do in some of the other lists I've put together, but I think it's necessary just to be able to cast things at least a little more consistently on the early turn or two. We could have gone with an extra Temple of Deceit, but I figured with the extra modal cards, didn't want to put ourselves in a situation where we can't conceivably cast stuff or leave mana up to either counter something or whatnot in addition to doing the other things we were doing. There is one kind of out of place Fabled Passage. Maybe we could play 2 or 3, but I'm just putting one in there for now just as a placeholder and kind of seeing how it'll come up during the course of games to decide if we want more or not. Now I want to say, just like all these are putting out early, a couple of things. One, y'all are making requests for decks. Just know that there are already a pile of decks coming, so just be patient. We have plenty of time. Well, kind of. We have like 4 more days. But there will be a lot of decks coming, I promise. The other is, don't get too caught up on what the individual cards are in this list and the numbers that they are, because they're absolutely going to change. That's just the way it is right now. Like, we're all going to be learning things over the next few days. People are going to be experimenting with stuff. People are going to be putting together proxy decks to practice draw. Things will change. And then once we get to playing them actually on Arena, absolutely things will change, because a large part of it is going to be dictated on what the other decks are doing. So right now, we're kind of just putting cards in with no real context. Just something to keep in mind. But if you're looking to play Rogues, now is probably the time. This is the first time in maybe ever that I could say consistently you might be able to find a Rogue deck that can win some games for you. So, hey, if you've been waiting and looking for it, have at it. Also remember, if you haven't yet, please like this video to help us get seen by more people. Hit that subscribe button, because that shows me all the love, appreciation, and adoration. And hit that notification bell so you get notified every single time I have another video up, because there's going to be a lot of videos coming out between now and the release of Zendikar with a ton of deck lists if you just want some more deck ideas and figure out how to spend your resources, whether that's cash or wildcards, to know what you need to pick up. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.